In this video, I'm going to answer some of your most frequently asked questions. Hi, it's Karolyn. If you want to learn how to bake and decorate amazing cakes, then I would love for you to join me by hitting subscribe and the bell. So I post videos and y'all got a lot of questions. And I noticed that I frequently get a lot of the same questions all the time. So I just wanted to put a video out there for you guys answering my most asked questions. And before I start, right now it is January and I need to ask y'all, is anyone else hearing crickets like I am? Like, it is just, this time of year is so slow and it's so funny. I don't know if anyone else is like me though. I know January and February are slow, but nonetheless, every year that it comes around, I'm like, where the heck is everyone? Does nobody want to get cakes? I mean, I do make some cakes now, but it's like in March through June, I'm turning down orders. I'm getting so many orders. And in January and February, nobody's ordering. Anyone else wish that with a small business that you could just spread it out evenly? It would be nice. But anyway, so I wrote down a list of these questions that I keep getting that I want to answer for you guys. And I didn't even number them. So I don't even know how many there are, but we will start with number one. What do I use to adhere decorations to cakes? And I get asked this so much that I did make a video and that will be linked in the description. There are a few things that I use all of the time and it all depends on how strong of a bond that I want it to hold it to the cake. So I will use something like vegetable shortening, which has a very weak bond. So I'll use that for something like borders or something that I want to be able to adjust. And then I like to use piping gel a lot. Piping gel is a little bit stronger than the shortening. And I also use good old water. And I also like to use icing, some buttercream to adhere it to buttercream. And I do that because I refrigerate my cakes. So once I put icing on the back of a decoration and refrigerate it, that icing solidifies and it really holds that decoration to the cake. Now there are plenty other things that you can use as well. I actually had somebody tell me the other day that in a pinch they used honey and it worked really well. And you can also use some corn syrup if that works too. But it all depends on what I am adhering to the cake. And like I said, I'll put that video in the description that goes into further detail. Question number 2. Does the decor slide off in the heat? So this can be an issue, and this is all about controlling the environment that your cake is in. Right now, I'm just outside of Philly. It's winter and it's cold, and this is the best time of year to make cakes, and nobody's ordering right now. But anyway, because the cakes stay cold. If you're on a delivery for a half hour, it's 40 degrees out. The cake isn't melting. So if you have a cake and you take it out of the refrigerator and bring it into a warm room, i.e. no air conditioning, or take it outside, condensation is going to start to form and the decorations are going to slide off. So in the warm months, what I let people know is that they need to keep the cake cool to gradually bring it to room temperature. Now, another issue with this is people ask, how do I anchor, and I guess I'll say this is question 3. How do you anchor heavy decorations to the sides of your cakes? And I've shown that in a couple of videos, and I'm going to try to find some B-roll so I can put it in here. I take some toothpicks and I angle them down into the cake so the points are sticking up, and then I hook the decoration onto it. So I don't like to stick the toothpicks directly straight into the cake because then the decoration could pull the toothpicks down. But if the toothpicks are anchored down into the cake, it's kind of like a picture hook. Like it just hangs on there and doesn't fall off. Let people know that you do have toothpicks behind those decorations when they pick up the cake. All right, question number 4 has to deal with the shortening amounts in my icing. And I did not realize, because I've made a couple different American buttercream icing videos and I use different shortening amounts in them. So I do, and I'll put the videos below so you can reference them, but in my American buttercream, I use high ratio shortening. It's sweet text shortening. It just has the best mouthfeel. In the colder months, I use less than I do in the warmer months. So I use a ½ cup in the cold months and 3/4 cup in the warm months, for the reason that in the warmer months, since it's hotter, the icing will start to melt quicker and the shortening melts at a higher temperature. So it helps to stabilize the icing and prevent it from becoming a soft, soupy mess, if you will. So I like to add a little bit more as a little shortening security blanket, if you will, in the warmer months. So if you do either amount, there really isn't that big of a difference. Like I just said, I'm repeating myself. On to number 5, which is related to the whole icing thing. So I've posted a video on how to get air bubbles out of your icing using a smoothing method with a Viva paper towel. And I get a lot of people saying every time I stick the paper towel to the cake, it sticks. And in my videos, I smooth it on the cake and peel it off and it doesn't stick. 2 reasons. Number 1, you must make sure you are using a crusting buttercream if you're going to do the paper towel method. If you're using a meringue buttercream, it does not form a crust and that paper towel is going to stick to it. Number 2, if when you are smoothing the icing with your bench scraper and the bench scraper was too wet, or if it was too hot and it melted the icing a little too much, you're gonna have to wait like a couple minutes for the icing to form a crust before you use the paper towel. Question 6 has to do with Tylose, and a bunch of these next questions all have to do with this. This is Wilton Gum Tex powder, or I usually use Tylose powder. Also, you can use CMC powder. What it does is it helps to stiffen your fondant and it helps to get it to a workable consistency. Now, I get a lot of questions on how much to use and what to use it for. And this will be linked in the description, by the way. So I make marshmallow fondant and I have a video showing you how I do that, and that will be linked in the description. And when I make marshmallow fondant, I add about a half a teaspoon of the Tylose powder to the fondant when it's in the bowl or right after I take it out and I knead it together, and then I wrap it up and I let it sit. A lot of people ask, do I use that fondant to cover cakes? Yes. I find that when I add a little bit of Tylose powder to a batch of fondant, it just helps smooth it out. It gets it to a better consistency where I can roll it out. There's none of those little pock marks in there. It's smooth, it's stretchy, and it's not annoying to work with. Now, I need to also make a little note that I only work with marshmallow fondant. I don't do store-bought fondant. I've had a lot of people say that they've added Tylose powder to store-bought fondant and it doesn't work as well. And that's one of the reasons I don't use store-bought fondant. It's so soft that I feel like I could empty this whole thing into there and it still wouldn't be hard enough. So that's why I just prefer working with marshmallow fondant. Now, number 7. I don't even know if I have to keep numbering, but anyway, if I am going to make decorations that I'm going to need to cut precisely with an X-Acto knife, why is that so hard to say? I'm going to add a little bit more Tylose powder. So I take that batch of fondant that I made, I rip a piece off, and then maybe I need to color it. So I'll need some color into it. And naturally, whenever you add some color to fondant, it softens it up a little bit. The amount of Tylose powder that I add to fondant pieces that I'm going to be cutting decorations out of, it's always going to be different. And this may not be good for video purposes, but it's all up to the feel. And it's just something that I'm so used to working with that I know how much I need to add. So what I recommend is start by adding a 1/4 teaspoon to a 1/2 teaspoon to your fondant, knead it into the fondant, and then let it sit. You can't use it right away. The Tylose powder needs time to start to work and to start to stiffen up the fondant. So what I'll usually do is I will color the fondant, add the Tylose, roll it out, and let it sit on my table for 20 minutes or so. And then I'll start making my decorations. And a side note, I just had somebody ask me a question, how often do I change my X-Acto blade? So when I'm making fondant decorations, you want a really sharp blade. And since I do it so much, I'm usually switching that out weekly because they can get dull pretty fast. But if you notice that the blade is kind of dragging through the fondant and not cutting it, then it's time to change it. Now, number 8, still talking about Tylose, is if I'm making toppers or something that needs to stand on their own, I will add more Tylose powder to it. So maybe like a teaspoon of the Tylose powder. I want it to dry really hard. I have a topper. Here is a number topper that I made yesterday, and I could break this if I wanted to. It's not super hard, but it's holding its shape. It's not moving. So what I did, and I have video showing you how I make toppers, and that will be linked in the description, but I add more Tylose powder to it, roll it out, let it sit, and then cut it, and then I'm going to let it dry. So I let it dry for at least 24 to 48 hours, flipping it onto the other side and then flipping it, you know, throughout the day to make sure the air can get to both sides when I really want something to dry really hard. All right, I'm gonna stop using the numbers because they don't make sense anymore. But the next question that I get asked is people want to know if you can use gum paste instead of fondant. The only thing with gum paste, it is great if you wanna make flowers or something that needs to dry really hard and hold its shape. However, if I use that for a topper, it dries super, super hard and it is more fragile than fondant and it doesn't taste good. Gum paste flowers, why did I just scream? Gum paste flowers really are not meant for consumption, although you could, but do you ever see anybody at a wedding just eating the flowers? But I would just not recommend using gum paste for decorations like what I teach, the 2D fondant decorations, just because it dries out really fast. You have to work really quick with it and it can be very fragile. So that's why I recommend adding the gum tex or the Tylose powder to the fondant. And the final question that I keep getting is how long in advance can you make the decorations? So sometimes you have a super busy week and the week before is really easy and you want to be able to take that time to make some decorations in advance. Here's what I will say about that. Know that your decorations can dry out and crack if you don't handle them right. I personally don't like to make decorations more than like 4 days in advance. A lot of the time I will make a decoration and put it on the cake within the hour, just so when it dries, it's drying to the shape of the cake. Now, I do have cake dummies that I dry decorations on all the time, and that is an option. However, and my cake dummies are over there, that's why I keep looking. But if I made something, I could probably make it a week or two in advance and dry it on a cake dummy that's gonna be the size of the cake that I put it on. And the other option, what I like to do is put decorations in Ziploc bags. That way they stay pliable. So I can make them a few days in advance and keep it soft, so then I can put it onto the cake if I want to be able to shape it to the cake without it drying or cracking out. But decorations like this that have to stand on their own, I don't see why you couldn't make it two or 3 weeks in advance. Just know that the longer you let it sit out, the harder that it's going to get. I think it really depends on the decoration. I had somebody asking me the other day if they can make the teddy bear. I have a video showing you how I make this cute little Rice Krispie teddy bear topper. She wanted to make it over a week in advance. The issue with that is buttercream fur that goes on the outside of that teddy bear. And if you let that dry too long, when you handle that bear, the fur is gonna crack and fall off. So it really depends on the decoration and the medium that you use to make it. So there you go. I hope I answered the questions that you have. If you have other questions that I did not get to, leave them in the comments below. And also, if you guys want to set up a one-on-one phone call or a Zoom call with me, I finally got that together, and information to schedule one of those calls will be linked in the description as well. Please like this video if you liked it, and if you are enjoying my tutorials, I would be so grateful if you could buy me a coffee. My link is pinned in the comments below. And you can keep in touch on socials and check out my website. Everything is listed in the description. And if you want to stick around, you can watch this video next and hit subscribe and the bell if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys, and remember, it's cake, have fun. I will see you on the next one. Bye.